Okay, thank you. We're going to move into our presentations now. We have, well, hopefully it won't be too long, but we have UPMC people, Walnut Capital, PJ Dick talking about the demolition and possible sale and redevelopment of the Southside Hospital building. Please, if everyone would hold their questions till after the presentation is over, and raise your hand to be recognized. Okay, Roger, would you like to begin with us?
Absolutely, Tom. Thank you. Good evening to all. My name is Roger Altmeyer. I'm with the Project Development and Construction team with UPMC. I'm joined by UPMC colleagues this evening, and also, as you mentioned, Tom, representatives of Walnut Capital and PJ Dick. Just to give everyone sort of a background relative to this particular property, UPMC, as most of you know, closed for inpatient services back in July of 2009. And the outpatient services were discontinued about 9 years later in July of 2018. About that same time, we needed to modify the UPMC Mercy IMP to reflect the new Mercy Tower. Because of the linkage between the Southside campus and UPMC Mercy, we had it, and because inpatient services were no longer provided at Southside and it really didn't qualify as an institution any longer, we needed to change the zoning to allow for office use that we intended to have happen at that location. Back in 2019, we began planning to use the facility as our IT center for all IT staff throughout UPMC. And then, as most of you know, in 2020, March of 2020, 3 years ago, COVID hit. So all those IT people that were intending to go there, including those that already were working out of that facility, were all working remotely. So since that time, for the last 3 years, with the exception of COVID-related activities, that building has been largely empty. So at this point, UPMC really has no further use for the hospital facility nor the surrounding properties. And we began to looking for buyers, for a purchaser for the facility. And that is how we got connected with Walnut Capital. We have a letter of intent relative to the purchase of those properties. So with that, I will turn over the presentation to Todd Reidbord from Walnut Capital to talk about their plans. And we also have PJ Dick on the line to talk about the proposed demolition plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger, and I appreciate the introduction. As I said, I'm Todd Reidbord from Walnut Capital. We're a Shadyside-based developer. I believe a number of the people on this call know who we are. We've done extensive work in the city of Pittsburgh neighborhoods, primarily focusing on a lot of residential development and other mixed-use development. We have a large portfolio of apartment units all over the city, some on the south side, some on around the universities and the medical centers. And as you know, we're also the developers and owners of Bakery Square. So we're really excited about this opportunity. When UPMC approached us, we put our team together that we've used on most of our projects in the city, which includes PJ Dick as our general contractor and Strata as our architects. And we started studying what could be done with all of these properties that are comprise the old Southside Hospital. And we settled on residential use. We're still in the process of studying the exact types of residential use, but as you know, we're primarily in the rental business. We've also done a number of for sale townhomes at Bakery Square, and we think that might be an opportunity as well in this area. But those plans are really to be determined. Really, what's the purpose of this meeting is to talk about the demolition. So in order to, we have studied it extensively. In order to maximize the value and the potential further uses, we believe it's essential to demolish the existing hospital building. We will be keeping the medical office building as well as the surrounding parking areas, and we'll look at future development opportunities. Our intent would be to renovate the existing medical office building for residential use. We have put together, our friends at PJ Dick have put together a demolition plan. Our intent would be to demolish the building as soon as possible once the sale goes through. We're working with UPMC on obtaining the necessary permits and clearances. As you know, Walnut Capital is, as I said, a Pittsburgh-based developer. We've made a commitment on all our projects to use 100% union labor. So whomever we hire or who will use PJ Dick as the general contractor, whether they self-perform the work or do through subcontractors. They'll all be recognized union contractors. With that, I really wanted to turn it over to Frank Babik, who is the project executive at PJ Dick, who we work with extensively. And he can describe to you what the nature of the demolition will be with this building. Obviously PJ Dick is a well-known Pittsburgh contractor. They may be one of the largest contractors in all of Pennsylvania, and they're very experienced in projects of this size and this order of magnitude. With that, let me share the screen. It says host disabled participant screen sharing. So if somebody can let me share the screen, I don't know if that's Bob, or I can show you a drawing that PJ Dick put together, and Frank Babik can talk us through that. Somebody. If not, we can just talk it through.
Todd, you should have.
Oh, there, I got it. It just came through. There we go.
Okay,
Let me
sorry.
just share the screen. That's okay. Just came through. And then I'll introduce Frank Babik from PJ Dick. He's on the call. Frank, you want to take over from here?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Todd. Excited to be working with our friends at Walnut Capital and UPMC. So I've walked the building several times and have had several meetings with both entities. So based on what we know now, we put a preliminary plan together just for discussion and presentation for this meeting. Obviously, everything needs to go through the City of Pittsburgh PLI process, and we'll have to go through the proper channels for road closures and get our sidewalk closing permits. But the intent is obviously to keep the workers and the community safe. So our preliminary plan is shown here. The site fence, which would be a temporary fence, is shown in yellow, surrounding all the public areas of the site. So starting on the right, we have 3 buildings to demolish. 2000 Mary Street, which is the big building, 1912, which is the middle building, and 1900 Mary Street, which is the building on the right. So in order to demolish these properly, we envision, just based on what we've done in and around the city in Oakland and East Liberty, putting this fence on the parking lane. We're going to need room inside the fence to handle most of the demolition. So we envision, with approvals, taking the parking lane and the sidewalk on 19th Street, which is on the right, along Mary Street, which is along the bottom. And on the left side, it's a little bit of a quirky situation. We don't have a parking lane there. We have a travel lane with parking in the middle. So we would envision taking the travel lane and then not allowing parking until we can get the building safe. Due to the size of the job, I think we need 2 gates. So we've shown those in red. The traffic would exit and enter on Mary Street. So what we've shown here is, on the left side, Todd, we envision a Liebherr 965, which is a 95-foot piece of equipment that can reach the top of this. So we would start on the left side with that piece of equipment, and on the right side, the SK 500. That's a Cabelco piece of equipment. So what we would do is we would start on both ends of the job with big pieces of equipment and start taking this down. At no point, we would work from the outside of the building and keep everything within the fence line. Once we have enough of the building down, we would bring in some loaders and excavators and skid steer loaders and start hauling material off of the site. Obviously, the building's going to have to be free of asbestos, and we'll have to go through the permitting process. So there will be a approximately 8-week PLI process to get the demo permit. As Todd said, they would be union contractors that would file a formal demo plan. Again, this is just preliminary since we have a bunch of structural demolition. We would have we'll disconnect all the utilities. We will have a temporary water hookup to keep the dust down in the event that we have some dusty areas. And then the fences and barricades and the signage would be installed per the city's MPT plan. We envision most of the work, if not all the work, during normal construction business hours. I don't think due to the noise, we're going to be working at night in the community. So we will abide by the noise ordinances. All equipment will be staged within the site. All the parking will be on UPMC property down, that little lot there as part of the purchase price. So we'll contain the workers' parking and keep them out of the neighborhoods. When the building's down and safe, what we'll do is we'll move the fences inboard to the curb line so that we can open up the parking lanes back up. And when we're totally done, we'll get the site graded and we'll get it seeded and then take the fences down. So in general, that's the preliminary plan.
Thanks, Frank. That's really the extent of our presentation. I think we can open up for questions. And what I'd like to say, we have our lawyer on the call as well, John Kamen, who does all our zoning and other work. So what I thought it might be best that if people have questions that John can sort of field the questions and direct them, either answer them himself or direct them to the proper person on our side, whether it's on the Walnut Capital or the UPMC side, so we can sort of handle it that way and make sure that it's done efficiently. So with that, we can turn it back over for questions.
I see. Go ahead, Councilman.
Who I can't see. Who is that?
It's John Kamen, but I see
Okay.
Jackie has her hand raised. She was the first to have her hand raised.
Okay. Happy to concede. My questions are really around community engagement. So if Jackie wants to go first, that's great. I'll go next. Thank you.
Sure, thanks. Hi, thanks for presenting this to the group tonight. My name's Jacky Kaiser. I'm a board member of the Southside Community Council. We're the recognized registered community organization within the Southside Flats. I'm also a neighbor. I live at the 18th block of Mary Street, so a stone's throw away from the site. So I have a number of questions, John, for you, Frank, and Roger. First on the demo, when are you filing PLI, your demolition plans? And when is your intended start date?
So I think we have some things that we have to work out, but my guess would be that we would be intending to start this at some point in the early summer, maybe a little bit later. We have to, assess the building, understand it, work through those items. But before we did actually start the work, we would have a public meeting to answer everybody's questions, to give contact information, to be able to share the relevant timing and sequences with the folks, so that, to the extent there were any problems, and we certainly recognize this as a residential, neighborhood here, that we had all that triaged up front.
Yeah, I mean, the community would like to meet with you all because, we're concerned about hours of operation. We're concerned about the phasing plan and would like to see the demolition plan, the phasing plan, your vehicular exit plan, all of that stuff before you even submit to PLI, so you can tie the community into that process and we have visibility. And that, would also like to see your environmental reports for the remediation process if possible. Would like to have those submitted to the community as well. And do you have any idea on the duration of the demolition? I don't think I asked that, did I?
I don't know, Frank, do you have comments on how long you think it will take?
Obviously it's going to depend on the contractor, depending on how much material is left in the building and whatever shape it's left in between when UPMC's done. I would think something this size is going to be 6, 7, 8 months total duration. Now, that doesn't mean that we'll be outside with the chompers for 8 months, because there'll be a fair amount of interior demolition that'll need to happen.
Right. And so I think people are going to be really concerned about the heavy equipment. Where are these loaded dump trucks going throughout the day? Are you going up under the trestle to Josephine to keep it off the residential streets? Because I know, like my house, like many others, they're over 100 years old. So they are sensitive, sensitive homes. And we're really concerned about that amount of traffic. We're also concerned about the fact that, you know, parking is tight on the south side, and would want to know your anticipated duration to have those parking lanes closed from 19 to 21. I know there's no parking necessarily right in front of that entrance to the hospital, but to be honest with you, residents, we have to park that entire length from 19 to 21 on Mary Street on both sides where we can. So right now I'm seeing a big handful of parking spots going away that we utilize on a daily basis. So I don't know if there's any mitigation there where we can maybe alleviate some of that pain by either looking at the plan you have in place for the 19th Street parking lane closure, or possibly opening up that lot that you're going to use for queuing down there for residents to park in during this time frame as an option. Would want to discuss that with you guys as well. So in terms of you guys starting in the spring, we'd like to hold a meeting, John, like you mentioned, as soon as possible. So I think everyone has everyone's contacts on this call, and it's already March. And if you're talking June, we're not far away. So we'd like to get something started ASAP as far as the demolition planning.
Yeah. What I would say, Jackie, is that we're all for having the meetings and working through these details, but we've got to get our own details done first.
Sure.
And that's important for us to understand timing, sequence, manpower. As Frank said, we think there are two pieces of equipment. Part of the city demolition program involves a traffic management plan and all of those plans. So I think we'd like to get our ducks in a row to be able to understand the size, scope, and timing, and then we'll be happy to come back as we understand that and share with the community what we've learned.
Okay, that's great. I'm just saying not too late, because we, the community, don't want to be backed into a corner and you guys say, oh, we already filed for this.
Well, I think part of, just so you know, I think part of it is filing. There is back and forth with the city. I mean, Domi has to look at things. There's a lot of
Sure.
there's a lot of internal review processes on a project of this size that has to happen. So I think we need to get some clarity, and then once we get clarity around sort of all the different pieces, we'll be happy to come back and share it.
Great. And then I just want to touch on something that Roger said early in the conversation. You know, these parcels were taken from EMI to urban industrial in 2018, 2019. And, you know, urban industrial isn't exactly the best fit here. And it does concern the community because the urban industrial zoning is wildly permissible, to say the least. And knowing that UPMC hasn't been using this property or this campus for quite some time, last year we had asked to meet with UPMC and with our city planner in zoning and see if there isn't a better fit for the zoning here. And so we're very concerned about what this property is currently zoned and what that allows the developer to do. And I heard you have a letter of intent, but is there any way that that conversation can be had to look at the zoning and see if we can't find a better fit? Because there's really, from my understanding, no perfect fit available, but there has to be something better than UI, because right now the neighborhood's concerned about density, height, parking, and UI doesn't address any of those.
Well, what I would say is that, you know, from our standpoint, what we're looking to do is a residential use. There may be, you know, some first floor retail, that type of thing, but the way we're planning our use, and we're in the middle of land planning studies right now internally trying to figure it out. The way we're planning our use, those uses that we're talking about residentially are permitted in UI. And we don't foresee any need for zoning change or anything like that. But of course, once we have our use thought out, this is the very beginning of the process. We ordinarily, we wouldn't even come for a demo permit, but I think we wanted to start the conversation. And certainly as we get our land uses plotted out, as Todd said, whether it's apartment or for sale townhouses or whatever we're doing, we'll be coming to this meeting. I think you folks will be seeing a lot more of us for a long time to come.
Yeah, understood. And we understand the residential is allowed in UI. We're just concerned that UI doesn't really regulate quite that much. So again, when we're looking at density, height, parking, there's some existing green space there. Will that remain or not? Or will you replace green space? All those things we want to, have further discussions about. So I'll leave my comments there and give other folks a chance to ask some questions. Thank you.
Okay. Jonathan, man?
Yeah, sure, of course, Bruce.
Okay, so my questions are very much along the same line as Jacky's. And I guess most of my questions really are for Frank, if I can see where Frank is or not. Are you here, Frank? Good.
He's there.
Great.
He's there.
Yeah, okay. So my question to begin with, it sounds to me like it's not so much a demolition as it is a deconstruction. And I'm not trying to play loose with verbiage, but being that it is so very closely connected to residents on 3 of the 4 sides, and clearly they will be the most impacted. I'd kind of like to have a clearer understanding. When we talk demo, people think, oh my God, they're going to put dynamite in the building and blow it up and it's all going to come down in one fell swoop. But that doesn't sound like that to me at all, that it's going to be a dismantling of the building and not so much a demolition. Is that, Frank, do I have that correct?
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. The equipment that we have great big chompers on the end, and we cut the steel and we pull the building inside of itself. We're always working from the outside, pushing in. We're never on the inside pushing out. We are very familiar with demoing buildings in densely populated areas. We just did it at 5th and Halkett, and I was the one in charge of demolishing the Children's Hospital, where we were literally demoing the tower 1 bay away from the operating rooms. So we're very familiar with trying to get our job done with as minimal impact to everybody. But you're correct. There's not going to be explosions. You're not going to have headache balls slamming into the side of this building. I would classify it, as you said, as more of a deconstruction.
Okay. The reason I ask, and a lot of my questions are going to be based on this, looking at your drawing here, you can see 19th Street, 21st, and Mary through 100, 21, and then 21st Street. There's housing directly across the street. And personally, and Jacky will attest to this, we know those people, their neighbors, we know them personally. And there's going to be lots of concerns and questions around toxic materials, perhaps. Now, I know a lot of that is governed under federal law, but just for the comfort and to have it on the public record, there's going to be a clear assessment of any toxic materials, whether it be mold, lead, asbestos, anything along those lines that are required by federal law, that all of that will be remediated before any kind of deconstruction takes place.
Bruce, that's correct. And Frank can tell you that Allegheny County has amongst the strictest rules in terms of environmental health and safety in the country, not just the Commonwealth, but in the country. So yes, all that has to be done is part of the demolition plan. Everything else has to get approved. As Frank will tell you, it's not easy at all to get these approvals, and from a timing and process standpoint, lead, asbestos, everything has to be taken care of.
No, exactly right, John. I mean, you can't get a demolition permit in the city of Pittsburgh until you prove and certify the building's clean. So all of your concerns will be addressed prior to receiving a demolition permit
And the
or
other thing-
deconstruction permit.
The other thing I might add too, and one of the things we as Walnut Capital do is when I mentioned that we use only union labor, is that remember that one of the advantages we believe of using union labor is their health and safety and OSHA requirements. I mean, these are not a bunch of guys in a pickup truck coming and trying to demolish this building. I mean, they have full safety teams. PJ Dick has a full safety department. They'll come and watch their workers. They'll watch everything to make sure that it's done per the standards, not only that the county requires, but their own internal standards. So this is not three guys in the back of a pickup truck coming and trying to demolish this building. These are well-established, well-known union contractors.
Yeah, Todd. So how do I want to say this? So this is something that you and your team do on a regular basis. This is going to be a first-time experience for everybody that lives on the perimeter of this happening, and rightfully so are going to be concerned and somewhat nervous at times. And so the point of the questions really is to make certain that we continue to provide ample correct information on a regular basis. A lot of that is hand holding. I don't mean that in a negative way, but to make certain that people understand how and why and what is going on and when it is happening, and that they have a point of contact. As an example, like I was saying earlier, and Jacky and Barbara and Mandy Jane and Bob and people on the call can attest, we know everybody that lives around the perimeter of the site. And so one of the things I would like to suggest.
Bruce, can I just mention one other thing just before, because
Sure.
there's a good point in that. And we talked about it just very briefly when Frank mentioned that we're going to be using the parking lot adjacent to the medical office building as sort of our staging areas. We'll likely have a construction trailer there. There'll be a person on site. There'll be a place where people can literally knock on the door and saying, there's some dust or a problem, or you need to do this, or somebody's parking in my space that shouldn't be. So we're all reachable. We'll put our name on the sign. You'll have a direct contact person. We're well known in the community, not just us as Walnut, but PJ Dick and whomever they choose as certain subcontractors. So this is, again, we are very neighborhood friendly. Frank and his team has a tremendous amount of experience in dealing in the city neighborhoods.
Yeah, and through a course of conversations, we'll formalize all of that, but just really as a matter of a broader discussion and to have it as a matter of the record that we've met and talked about these things. I just think it's important to state that. And even, I love the idea of having a physical contact, which that really hadn't entered my mind, but it would be great to have a digital contact as well too, that anyone, that has a smartphone, a laptop can easily connect into the construction management plan, have a sense of a timeline, what's taking place, what they can expect, those kinds of things. Jacky brought up another point about once we get to the point to where we are actually hauling away materials, everybody's going to be very interested in what kind of a route that it's going to take, how you're going to travel, how you'll avoid, largely populated residential areas in those cases. But that will be all of part of a broader discussion of a deconstruction management plan, which is really what I'm arguing for. And then to have more of a personal kind of a connection with affected members. I'm going to kind of put Bob on the I can't think of the word I want. Put him on
Duty.
Yeah. We had a very successful community meeting a number of months back around a disruptive property, and we housed it at the St. Matthews. They had a community center in there, and it was really very, very helpful to have a place to sort of collect in a physical way. Sort of be able to talk it through face to face. And so maybe we might be able to organize something along that line too, where we could have something that is in person, very close to the site, and perhaps even schedule something on a regular basis so that there's no oxygen for rumor or innuendo or speculation to even begin to develop, but that there's honest communication throughout and both physical, digital, and in-person communication. And I'm happy to offer up my services to coordinate things like that through the office to make certain that we do have physical space that residents can come out, and they will come out. I guarantee you, they will come out for this, and rightfully so. They will want to know that indeed their properties are safe and secure, no damage will come to their properties, that things will be done in an organized, coordinated fashion, and that the impact to them will be as minimal as possible. Couple real quick, and I'm going to relinquish the floor because a lot of people have questions. Looking at the site plan, there is a building, two buildings on the very right of my screen, the larger building and then the smaller building. I might be ahead of myself, but is it possible that those buildings may be coming down sooner than the large hospital as a way to sort of stage have a staging area that's closer to the hospital?
Yes. It's possible. It's most likely probable, especially with the concern about opening up on the parking on 19th Street. You know, if those spaces are, if the area is in that much of a need, we could certainly try to get that building down first and move the fence in on what I'm calling the right side of this slide.
I'm on the right side of my screen. I think you're okay. Now you're back there. So if you were to take the two smaller buildings down first, you would move the fencing in and not use that as a staging area?
We would move the fencing in to allow the parking area, the parking
Oh, I
lanes
see.
to be used.
I see. Understood.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, we certainly wouldn't want people walking on the sidewalk while there's debris, right up against them.
Yeah, no, understood. And then I have a list of things written down here, but I think I've gone through most of them. Could you talk just a little bit about the Roche-Taylor building? As I understand your presentation, Todd or Jonathan, the Roche-Taylor building is not part of demolition, but is actually being looked at as a rehab for apartments. So,
Yeah, Todd, you want to talk about that?
Yes, Bruce, you're correct. You're exactly correct. We have no intention of demolishing that building. We believe that it's easily convertible to apartments. It has new elevators, life safety, things like that. So we believe it's easily convertible to apartments.
Okay. So I'll end my comments just by reinforcing my very strongly worded request that we keep very open lines of communication throughout the process with Southside Community Council, with the planning forum, with my office, and especially though with affected residents. And I mean each and every individual house that we could name, we know who lives there, and make certain that they are given the courtesy of full understanding of what is about to take place, how it may impact them, and that we make every attempt to invite them into the conversation and be part of the process. So thank you. I appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. Tom, thank you for letting me have some time.
Well, thank you, Bruce. I see that Nina has her hand up.
Hi, thank you. My name is Nina Cherbovich. I live on Mary Street between 19th and 20th. Definitely echo everything that has already been said. I think my main question is what is required to be communicated to the immediate neighbors, and what rights, like in terms of height. My son comes from the front of my house. I'm curious if I'll have any input in terms of how high the buildings go. So I just want to know what's required to be communicated to us. So I agree that going above and beyond that would be ideal.
Right. So on the demo process, there's actually nothing that's required to be communicated to the neighbors because the demolition is not in a public realm type district. That being said, we wanted to come and have this discussion, and then, once again, we get our plans sort of formalized, we'll be back with to have another discussion. But in terms of requirement, there's not a whole lot on the demolition side. On the planning side, there's a ton that has to happen. So when we go ahead and submit plans to the to city planning, there's meetings that are required through the RCO, which we talked about, which is the Recognized Community Organization. That's a public process. Then there's also public meetings that are held at Planning Commission. And then there's also a series of other meetings that are held, but all of that is way down the road. Right now, what we're just talking about in terms of demo and what's required because of where this property is not a whole heck of a lot, but that's why we wanted to start the conversation and tell you we're going to have more conversations as well as points of contact along the way.
Thanks.
You bet. I saw Barbara had her hand up.
Yes, I'm Barbara Rudiak. I'm with the Southside Community Council, and I also live in the 1900 block of Jane. But I did want to know, going back to the sale of UPMC parcels, how many parcels are going to be purchased by Walnut Capital?
Barbara, this is Roger Altmeyer. So every single parcel that we control on and around the Southside campus is part of the transaction.
And has a number, do you have a number attached to that or?
That's confidential at this point in terms of number of parcels or purchase price?
No, parcels. And a question, I guess, is just a few that I had put down. There's the white building on Harcum Way. I think you had mentioned the parking lots. There's a green space across from the Roche Taylor building that has a tree in it. And, certainly I think the community would like for that to stay. But if that's something that can be discussed at a later time, I don't want to take up time at this meeting.
Yeah, I would say, Barbara, that's something that certainly will come through when we start our land use planning and going to Planning Commission. We're very much in a study mode right now, and we'll be enhancing that. So from our standpoint, that's definitely a preview of coming attractions.
Okay, thank you. And as you work on the residential development plans, this is for Walnut Capital, if we as a community can be involved in the beginning stages, I know that as an RCO, there down the line would be a development activities meeting, and we would see what your plans are. If we can be part of that in the beginning to talk so that we could provide input. As you can see from the photo, it's very, very close to other housing. And we would just like to share what it is that we would like to be considered as you think about what is going to be considered. We also would like to talk about affordable housing. That seems to be something that is talked about in other neighborhoods also. And so that's a request. And I do want to thank you for just in the demolition phase, having thinking about those parking needs that the residents will have. It's significant, the number of parking issues that we have because there are more people with cars living in this area and all of Southside than there are parking spaces. And I would agree that we do need to meet, and certainly we can work. Southside Community Council can work with Bruce's office to make sure that we can indeed have public meetings, because it is better to talk face to face and really become. I think we're going to become quite good friends with all of you, and the relationship piece is extremely important. And then certainly the planning for a meeting is that once a month time that we certainly can all come back and discuss what has been happening over the course of the month. So thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. I see Kevin has his hand up, which I think Kevin's unaccustomed to doing since he usually runs these meetings. Go ahead, Kevin.
I actually had to find where to raise your hand. It took me a while to find it. Hello, just want to introduce myself. I'm with the Department of City Planning. I guess more specifically with zoning and development review. Thomas wasn't able to be here tonight, so I'm filling in. So just kind of hanging in the background. If anyone has questions kind of more specific to big picture process, once an application is made for new development, I can speak a bit to that. But again, understanding that that's well in the future and we haven't seen anything yet. So it'd be really just a big picture overview. Thanks.
I see that somebody who's just labeled as iPhone has their hand up, so if you want to unmute and speak, that's fine. Okay, well, whenever you can, whoever's raising their hand, you're welcome to talk next. So I think Tom, did you have something you wanted to add?
No.
Okay. So first of all, again, I want to thank everybody for allowing us to come to the planning forum and to have these discussions. I think if you talk to everybody involved, UPMC, Walnut, PJ, we do agree that starting communication and having communication is the best way to have a good, solid relationship and process forward. So appreciate that. And again, this is the first of what I think will be many dozen conversations that we'll be having over the next couple of years as we think about what the new life of this property looks like. So if there aren't any further questions, I think we're probably ready to allow you guys to finish up the rest of your business.
Jonathan, may I piggyback just on something that Barbara put out there?
Sure.
One of the reasons for the successful reconstruct of the LTV site, which became known as Southside Works, was because there was a formation of an LTV steering committee, which really kept open lines of communication, not just on things that we've talked about like construction management plans, but was able to offer thought and idea around design, materials, height, all those kinds of things that make for a successful development. And I know that is way down the road. I don't want to take us there yet, but we have history in the neighborhood of successful project completion because of on all fronts. Because of open line of communication from community and developer. And so I look forward to this being very much the same way as we proceed with this.
Great, thank you. Last chance to the iPhone person. All right, well, thank you for your time. Tom, thank you for accommodating us. As we get more information and our schedule worked out, we'll be coming back. And I know that Bruce and Bob have been great about helping us to share information, but we'll also share it out through Tom in the forum so you guys can go ahead and widely disseminate everything. So thank you very much and have a great night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, Bruce, we'll move back on the agenda. Did you have anything else?
Honestly, I don't believe I do. And if it's not being rude, I'm gonna sign off. The Slopes is meeting at 6:30. I was afraid I might not be able to meet it, but I'm gonna go up and see their meeting. But I think for now, I'm good. Thank you for the opportunity, Tom.
Okay, thank you. Jacky, do you have anything about development activities meeting?
Hi, Tom. Yes, so it's already March. We did not have a development activities meeting for January and February, but we are going to have one this Thursday at 6 p.m. The Zoom link was sent out to our email distribution list. It is the double wide grill. They are proposing installing 2 large smokers basically at the sidewalk in front of the restaurant on the patio. And as you all know, the double wide is within the historic district. So they will be going in front of HRC. So if you have time to attend, that's the only review on our agenda this Thursday. So if you do have the time, please log on. And if you have any questions, just reach out to me and I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone from the Slopes Association about development activities? Not, we'll move on to the groups reporting out. Barbara, do you have anything for the community council?
Yeah, I think we will be having a general meeting March 28th. It's a Tuesday via Zoom at 6:30. And a major agenda item is going to be meeting with the Zone 3 police, offices of the mayor and public safety to discuss, I guess it's a continuation of what we started last year here on the planning forum. And, their plans for keeping East Carson Street and the community safe as they did last year, and continuing with that. And I think, other information, we do have other agenda items. And so we're hoping that residents and others will attend. Again, it's Tuesday, March 28th at 6:30. And the Zoom link and agenda information will be going out shortly.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Candace, anything from the chamber?
Well, we're focusing on working with Brashear and a small group of volunteers for the soup contest on April the 22nd. We believe we'll have 20 restaurants participating with matching other Southside businesses. And if anybody is interested in volunteering, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Lynn, anything else from the hospital?
No, that was a mouthful that they said, but no, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Jessica, do you have anything for us today?
Sure thing. My senior fair is coming up on April 18th from 10 a.m. to noon, and that'll be at the Brentwood Civic Center. Also really excited to be partnering with the Southside Block Watches for I think this is the 3rd annual Battle of the Block Watches on April 22nd. So be sure to reach out to the Block Watch folks if you want to be involved in that. I think it'll be really fun. We'll have that and the soup contest happening in Southside that day. So it'll be good times. That is it from my office.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anything else from anyone else? Well, if not, then the next planning forum meeting will be on April 11th. And hopefully I'll see you all sometime in the future. This is my last meeting tonight.
Oh, Tom, we're gonna miss you.
Definitely, we're going to miss you.
Thank you, Tom, for all your, all your hard work.
All your dedication.
For many years, and all the wonderful coverage in the Reporter.
I thank you.
Enjoy, Tom.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, and good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.